Good job, Margaret. Let's share the screen. Let's see. I'm going to go to the desktop for a quick second. Get today's summary up. In the meantime, a word from our sponsor. This class is a product of the leadership of our God, and He is guiding us in our evolution. So let's see, hold on. One more time here. Up the screen sharing aborted, so hold on a second. We're going to stop it for a second. That's not good. Just bear with us. This should work. Okay, I think we have the right document. Make sure the share doesn't abort. Okay. By Jove, I think we got it. Okay. All right. Tonight, we are going to go over part 3 of Ethan Dorr Shav's study of the mind and try to derive a biblical understanding of what is meant by the word lave. And this will enhance our understanding of what all the meditation teachers are saying when we have to control our mind. What is it that we're controlling? And this is going to give us a Jewish slant on that. We're also going to be focusing on another practical meditation that you can take in everyday life. It's called slow motion activity, and Bhante is going to teach us about that. So let us begin. You guys have been with us for a number of weeks. You know that we're doing a deep dive in visualization meditation, and we're taking a tangent to understand the mind, because that's what we're employing when we're visualizing. So we're going to get a very good understanding of that. Today, we're going to start off with an additional lesson from Matt Furey on visualization to give us some practical tips on how to do it. And in this case, it's going to be some practical tips on how not to do it. He has a short essay called The 5 Most Common Visualization Mistakes, and this is what he says. And by the way, as a side point, he is the propagator of Maxwell Maltz's teachings on psychocybernetics. He actually bought the enterprise. So he's Mr. Psychocybernetics now. So there's a nice continuity between what Maxwell Maltz was teaching us and what Matt Furey is teaching us. Matt Furey understands what Maxwell Maltz has been talking about, that's for sure. And this is what he says about visualization. He also places primary emphasis on visualization as a fundamental meditative technique and a fundamental mode of self-mastery. He says the following: when it comes to the practice of visualization, there are a great many mistakes people make that can lead to frustration, confusion, and more importantly, a lack of results. Here's a quick list of 5 of the most common mistakes. Number 1, visualizing more than one goal at a time. When you visualize more than one goal during a session, you jam your automatic servo mechanism. You create confusion on what to do and when to begin. When you focus on one goal, you gain mental clarity and give yourself the edge you are looking for. You also end up accomplishing more than you thought possible. Right. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. If you're so concerned about multiple items on your bucket list, when he says you jam your servo mechanism, it's a way of saying you won't know where to go. You'll bounce from here to there like a Pac-Man kind of guy, and you'll get nothing done. Choose one and focus on that. Okay. And by the way, this is a side swipe also at the whole idea of multitasking, which for the most part is not true. You're not effective if you're multitasking. Focus on one thing and get it done right. Mistake number 2, practicing too much. After you visualize, be sure to let go. You do not try to picture what you want all day long. Picture your goal for a short period of time each day, then move on. Eventually, the skill builds upon itself, and you are able to picture what you want throughout the day, but you're not trying to do this. Growth that takes place naturally and spontaneously, not by force. This is really true. This is true when you're taking a deep dive into anything. You invest your energy, you engage with it, and then you let it incubate. To become obsessed with it and to keep pushing yourself with it reaches a point of not just diminishing returns, but it becomes counterproductive. At some point, you get sick of it. So if you engage properly with what you're visualizing, like in a measured way, and then you let it incubate, and by itself, it will you'll be able to do it for a longer period of time as time goes on. Organically, you'll develop a skill at working with it for a longer period of time. It's the same thing Bhante is saying. You don't keep trying to do it. You do it in a natural way and let it evolve within you by itself, and you'll get stronger with it over time. Mistake number 3, setting big goals. You might think setting big goals is a good thing, and it can be after you've proven beyond a doubt that you can accomplish smaller daily goals over and over again. It is never a good idea to set goals that cause emotional resistance, such as fear, worry, self-doubt. This is why in the essay Zero Resistance Living, Dr. Maltz encourages you to always start with small, manageable daily goals. Once you are on a roll, accomplishing one daily goal after another, you have gained momentum and confidence. And this leads you to moving on to bigger goals, and doing so without the emotional resistance you would have encountered if you began with them. That's really good. So Dr. Maltz was telling us that with zero, that's another essay that we've studied, but the principle that he's been applying is if you set yourself up with unrealistic goals that are too much, that engender fear, worry, self-doubt, and a lot of negative emotions within you, you're setting yourself up with failure. Nothing's going to get done. You pick something that's doable and you get a success under your belt that gives you the momentum to keep doing it, like climbing a certain hill that might be near your house, let's say. You succeed in doing that, then you can go for higher and longer goals. So that's really important. Success breeds success, and failure breeds failure. You need the momentum of success by taking one step at a time, and that gives you the momentum to take bigger steps and faster steps. Mistake number 4, ignoring where you are. Everyone loves to picture being on top of the mountain, but the reality is you've got a long hike ahead of you. Ignoring where you are, only picturing what you want, strips you of the power and energy you need to make the climb. If you ignore where you are, chances are excellent you will remain stuck. This is a big thing from Matt Furey. He takes a point of view that we have been adopting throughout the entire class, which is start with reality. So if you're only in shape to walk half a mile, then you don't picture yourself completing a marathon. You picture yourself doing the half mile. And then when you prove to yourself that you can do the half mile, then you picture yourself with 3/4 of a mile, not 2 miles. And again, success brings success. Otherwise, you demoralize yourself, and you never are able to do the 2 miles because you're not in shape for it. And you're like, why bother? You set yourself up for failure because you've demoralized yourself. Both Maxwell Maltz and Furey and the other teachers that we're learning from keep emphasizing manage your morale, keep keep the emotions going positively so you can accomplish what you need to accomplish. Mistake number 5, trying too hard to see it clearly. This should be a 2. In the beginning, before your visualization skills are developed, you do not need to see everything clearly. You most certainly do not need to see what you are visualizing in high density or as clearly as if you are looking at a scene outdoors with your eyes open. When starting out, a pencil sketch or silhouette is enough. Your brain can still make sense out of images drawn on the walls of caves. And those images were not drawn by Michelangelo. So stop thinking that you need to see everything as clear as crystal. Start with something simple and allow yourself to grow. He's exactly right. Visualization is really, really hard for many, many people. There are some people that are born with a natural talent for really visualizing things, like artists, in particular visual artists. Okay, not everybody's like that. I'm not like that. It takes me, I'm still trying to picture the whole thing of whatever it is I'm trying to picture. And so, but that's fine. As long as you get a sense of what you're looking at, like he says, a silhouette, and your mind is filling in the rest of what it is that you're looking at, and that's good enough. That's your visualization. And over time, you become better and better and better and better. You do certain exercises to improve your visualization skills, like the one we mentioned in prior classes is, let's say, starting with a number of 500 and visualizing 500, 500, 499, 498, counting backwards, one step at a time, trying to see the whole number, the outline, each number, the 5, see the outline, the 0, see the outline, the 0, see the outline. Okay, that takes a lot of effort over time, but that's how it's a practice to develop that skill. So he's exactly right. And as he points out, there are many other mistakes people make in regard to visualization, such as not adding feeling or emotion to the imagery. And okay, we'll get into that at some point. We've already mentioned with the prior teachers about meditation that you invest your heart, your mind, your soul, you energize what you're looking at. And that's how it becomes real to your body. And that's how your body wants to run with it. Okay. So these are really practical tips on visualizing that you can do this evening. Okay. Now let's go to step 2 with tonight's class, and we will see what Ethan Dor Shav has to say about lave, or as he's translating it, the mind. Okay. Let's see. Here is part 3. Okay. Just to recap, Ethan Dor Shav is one of my favorite biblical scholars. He does a fine job of researching what does Tanakh say is the meaning of certain words and phrases in Tanakh, as well as Medrash. He's a scholar. He's done his homework, and he makes the point that if you understand how certain words are used in context throughout Scripture, you get a really firm understanding of exactly what is meant by that word, especially if you use multiple references. So he's doing this with the word lev, lamed vav, to show that even though it's commonly translated as heart, that's a mistranslation. It certainly does not refer to that cardiac organ we have in our chest. And he's come up with research that says it's never used to refer to that organ. He does understand how the Western mind works as well as the Eastern mind, and he says, yeah, I acknowledge that people often have an emotional connotation with lev, meaning that it implies a certain emotion. But as he's shown in the prior 2 studies we went through, that word can imply emotions sometimes, but a minority of the time. The majority of the time, it represents cognitive functions. Okay. And that's very important for us to know. And the reason why it's important for us to know in this study of meditation is because Rabbi Kaplan started us off, and the other teachers have picked up, telling us that meditation is the process of controlling what's happening in your mind. And Rabbi Kaplan has given us multiple examples of that. So here, we're kind of understanding, well, what is the mind? From the Jewish point of view, what's in it, and how does it work? And lo and behold, we're finding that with Ethan Dor Shav's research, it's exactly corresponding to what the personal growth gurus and other self-development teachers that we've studied are saying. It is the seat of the cognitive activity, part of which is the emotions. And when we meditate or when we go in ourselves, we are taking the seat in the theater of our mind, so to speak, and all the various stuff that takes place in the mind or the lev is there for us to deal with. And we have the ability, should we exercise it, to say, I want to focus on this and energize this, but not that. That becomes the bottom line. Okay, so let's hear what he says today in part 3 of a study of lev. And again, he's already given multiple examples to show what the word means. He continues here. Like many, I finished reading the final Harry Potter, in which Rowling was ambitiously philosophical. I was rather impressed with the following little exchange between Dumbledore and Snape. I'm not familiar with these guys, but okay. Lord Voldemort's soul, maimed as it is, cannot bear close contact with a soul like Harry's. Souls, we were talking of minds. In the case of Harry and Lord Voldemort, to speak of one is to speak of the other. Ah! So he's basically saying that the Harry Potter books are conveying the same connection between soul and mind as the Bible is. This idea of a mind-soul identity follows a long intellectual heritage reaching back in time to Kant, Augustine, Aristotle, and all the way to the like Gnostics. My essay on the soul deals with this fundamentally Israelite idea. With our Biblical Wisdom Dictionary, however, we can easily trace it to an earlier millennium in words attributed to King David, may your mind live forever. And again, the Hebrew for that is lev. Okay. So he's basically saying we had it first, meaning that all these great Western philosophers connected the mind, what they thought was the mind, to soul. But even going back to King David and Tehillim, we got that. So the verse, may your mind live forever, exemplifies how crucial it is to get the Hebrew lev right, indeed to get a right lev. By correctly translating the term as mind, not the mistaken heart, we open ourselves to fundamental biblical teachings about something within us that has the potential to exist forever. Its eternal standing is directly correlated with its ability to be ready, set, direct, and pure, leading it to transform and to reach the total clarity of revelation. So here are a few more things that the biblical lev knows how to do. Wow. Okay, so he's already in prior essays giving us various examples of how lev can, in a minority of times, mean an emotion, and a majority of times mean a cognitive function. And here he's saying, he's taking it a step further and saying it can represent a very deep cognitive function, which leads us to actually transform and grow. For example, to reflect. From Michelet, like the face of water to a face, so is the mind of man to man. He says, this exquisite verse may concern a meeting of minds between people, but more likely the function of the mind as the inner screen upon which man's perceptions play. Hold on. Just adjusting the screen here. Okay. To be set. If you return to the Lord fully minded, set your minds to the Lord and serve him alone. That's from Shmuel Aleph. And he did evil because he did not set his mind to seek the Lord. That's right, Divrei Hayamim. Ezra had set his mind to study the law of the Lord. That's from Ezra. Everyone that set his mind to find out God, the Lord. That's also from Divrei Hayamim. The Hebrew word nun kaf nun is used for a mindset or an intention. A house set on pillars, an argument set in words, and for being ready and set to go. My mind is set. God, my mind is set. I will sing and chant. Again, this is the understanding of the word lev. So you could see that especially from those, from in our point of view, associating with the word mind with these very powerful and mental functions, you can see how the Hebrew really makes the Hebrew make sense here, because in the context, like here in this last one from Tehillim, my mind is set. I will sing and chant. This is a guy that's ready to perform, not just to perform, but to chant, sing and chant the liturgy with tremendous energy and kavanah. So we can appreciate that as being like a really high caliber mental function that energizes his entire being, certainly taps into his soul. So this interpretation of lev as mind is allowing us to understand that the Tanakh is really showing how we're made to function that way. Another example, to be transformed. The ability to connect to the divine results from mind transformation. This was the case of Shaul. when he had turned his back to go from Shmuel, God gave him another mind, and the Spirit of God came mightily upon him, and he prophesied. Whoa! He changed his mindset, and he turned his back to Shmuel. He had a mental transformation, and then this Ruach Elohim came upon him, and he prophesied. All through the word lev, meaning mind. And there went with him a band of men whose minds God had touched. From Shmuel. This transformation is what Ezekiel calls having a new mind, and what the psalmist prays for. Examine me, O Lord, and try me. Purify my conscience and my mind. So teshuvah, repentance, kapara, are taking place initially in the mind, by having a transformation in your mind, and the Hebrew being lev. This is really powerful stuff. The purpose of life is to transform your mind through meritorious and mindful living. According to the Hebrew Bible, the preliminary mind, which one is born with, is innately ignoble. And the Lord said in his mind, I will not again curse the ground anymore for man's sake, for the nature of man's mind is bad from his youth. That's from Breshit. At the other extreme is the prophetic mind of clear, unhindered perception, according to the Talmud. This is why the Hebrew word for mind appears in the double form, lavav, a coexistence of the ignoble mind and the pure. While in its original state, the mind is controlled by the senses, their illusions and temptations. And since he's a philosopher, he understands Eastern philosophy, he's quoting the Buddhist term Mara here, meaning the illusions and temptations. Wisdom can transform it to the exalted state of bliss. And quoting Psalms, create in me a pure mind, O God, and renew a set spirit within me. A prophet is a mind of wisdom. Thus it may be said of learned and earned enlightenment. The statutes of the Lord are direct, delighting the mind. The commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes. And finally, light is sown for the righteous, and for those of a direct mind, bliss. Whoa. So now, in this grand finale, he's basically saying that we're born with a mind that's at a certain level. That's kind of like a slave to the senses. However, we work on ourselves with all the guidance God gives us and Chazal gives us, and that mind evolves into a more advanced mind, which we control. It doesn't control us. Lo taturu achrei levavchem v'achrei einechem. So that quote, I'm putting that quote out there from the Shema. So that's telling us that when we're saying the Shema, we're basically telling us that we need to be able to raise ourselves internally so that we are the mind is not, that we are in charge of the mind is not in charge of us. The mind, the initial mind, the mind we're born with, is something that gets that is prone to follow the senses, but with proper work it becomes something we control. And that brings us right back to the definition of meditation that we started from way back when, which is meditation is the process of controlling the contents of your mind. From the biblical point of view, that's our mission. And all the work we do, the religious work we do, is supposed to enable us to become that kind of a master. Okay. So we'll finish this up. The last, Ethan, we'll finish it up next week. But the you can see how now this starts relating to what we've been studying with Maxwell Maltz and Matt Furey and so on, because they're talking about deploying your energies, deploying your mental facilities in some way, shape, or form. We have to direct um, this our body, mind, our energies in a certain direction. And what people forget is that we have the power to choose which direction that is. The people that are not choosing to direct their energies properly, who are kind of just being passive and just letting their mind do the directing for them, are people that haven't evolved in the way that Ethan is describing that the Torah wants us to do this. The people who are saying, no, I'm at the control panel here. I'm going to decide what I'm going to focus on and what I'm going to energize and develop all the skills needed to do that. This is what the Bible is saying. Yeah, that's what you got to do. Develop that kind of mind, what Ezekiel calls a new mind, whose minds had been touched. That's what we're talking about here. Let me just check the time. Okay. Amazing stuff. Okay. Let's see what Bhante has to teach us about meditating and doing this stuff throughout daily life. So, we will go back to, oh, I didn't save it. Okay. So sorry about that. Hold on one more second, please. I will call that document back up. Okay. So, let's do it. Try it again. Slow motion activity. To zoom, to share. There we go. Okay. Okay, and again, the point here is this. These skills that we've been talking about that allow you to control the activity of your mind have to be developed, and there's a wide variety of meditative practices to do that. And as Rabbi Kaplan points out, meditation is meditation, and the Chinese and the Jews have been doing the same stuff. The Muslims have been doing the same stuff for eons. He even makes that point. We're all doing the same kind of stuff. Okay. And as Bhante points out, you have to be able to do this in everyday life. You can't spend 8 hours a day or 12 hours a day sitting on a cushion being tranquil, because we got lives to lead. But still, how can we remain objective and in the center of the storm, so to speak, centered, and not get carried away with everything the combustion that's going through our mind? So he started to give us activities we can do off the cushion. This one is called slow motion activity. And this is what he says. Every action you perform is made up of separate components. The simple action of tying your shoelaces is made up of a complex series of subtle motions. Most of these details go unobserved. In order to promote the overall habit of mindfulness, you can perform simple activities at very low speed, making an effort to pay full attention to every nuance of the act. Sitting at a table and drinking a cup of tea is one example. There is much here to be experienced. View your posture as you are sitting and feel the handle of the cup between your fingers. Smell the aroma of the tea. Notice the placement of the cup, the tea, your arm, and the table. Watch the intention to raise your arm Watch the intention to raise your arm arise within your mind. Feel your arm as it rises. Feel the cup against your lips and liquid pouring into your mouth. Taste the tea. Then watch the arising of the intention to lower your arm. The entire process is fascinating and beautiful if you attend to it fully, paying detached attention to every sensation and to the flow of thought and emotion. You could do this with anything. Imagine doing this with a Shabbat meal, from everything from the washing to the motzi to the kiddush. There's a whole lot of detail to wrap yourself in there. Or just getting dressed. The same tactic can be applied to many of your daily activities. Intentionally slowing down your thoughts, words, and movements allows you to penetrate far more deeply into them than you otherwise could. What you find there is utterly astonishing. In the beginning, it is very difficult to keep this deliberately slow pace during most regular activities, but skill goes with time. Start small, start with your shoes, then expand that to walking to your car, and then expand that to starting your car. Just the act of getting in your car and starting it, and all the adjustments and this and that could be meditative. Profound realizations occur during sitting meditation, but also profound revelations can take place when we really examine our own inner workings in the midst of day-to-day activities. This is the laboratory where we really start to see the mechanisms of our own emotions and the operations of our passions. If you paid attention to yourself when you're starting your car, you realize, oh man, I'm really still ticked at so-and-so here, or I just feel terrible today. You would get in touch with what's going on because you're allowing yourself to focus on what's going on internally as well as externally. It's all part of the same space. Your internal stuff and what you're doing externally is occupying the same room, so to speak. So you become aware of both. This is the laboratory where we really start to see the mechanisms of our own emotions and the operations of our passions. Here is where we can truly gauge the reliability of our reasoning and glimpse the difference between our true motives and the armor of pretense that we wear to fool ourselves and others. Yep. We will find a great deal of this information surprising, much of it disturbing, but all of it useful. And again, he keeps saying you got to accept the good, the bad, and the ugly. Bare attention brings order into the clutter that collects in those untidy little hidden corners of the mind. As you achieve clear comprehension in the midst of life's ordinary activities, you gain the ability to remain rational and peaceful while you throw the penetrating light of mindfulness into those irrational mental nooks and crannies. You start to see the extent to which you are responsible for your own mental suffering. You see your own miseries, fears, and tensions as self-generated. You see the way you cause your own suffering, weakness, and limitations. And the more deeply you understand these mental processes, the less hold they have on you. Yep, you see to what extent the worry and the obsession and all this other stuff is coming out of you. Very cool stuff. Next week, we'll go through another practical tip of breath coordination. Okay. And on that note, we will meditate ourselves. Okay, Margaret,